Hey everyone, really excited this week to speak with Steve, who recently actually broke back into tech and tech sales. Steve, I know you've got an awesome background that we'll dive into. Actually, we're out of the industry for quite a while before breaking back into tech sales. So, Steve, maybe paint the picture for everyone watching of where you were before you started this process of breaking into an SDR role.
Sure. So I have quite a unique career background. I've been a professional poker player for the vast majority of the last 10 to 15 years. I thought long about what I wanted my next career to be after this bizarre world of poker. A couple of my colleagues had moved into tech sales, had success at it. A lot of aspects of it seemed appealing that are probably appealing to a lot of other higher levels customers. I came in at a time where things were a little softer to get into. Tech was definitely booming at the time in 2018, 2019. I had success at it for reasons unrelated to tech sales. I had an opportunity in poker, which I came back to. So I'm now at a point that I have actually been out of the world for 5 years, decided that I was truly ready to have a long-term career in tech sales. And that's where I was at when I found you guys.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. And I'm sure that background, I'm excited to see a couple of years from now, like how well that serves you. That's such a unique experience. I'm sure we could talk a ton about. But I am curious too, something we've talked about on our live calls and whatnot. You had kind of tried some things on your own before ultimately electing to look for coaching in the first place. So I'd love to just have you recap your experience and kind of where you were when you started applying before actually looking for formal coaching.
Sure. So I will highlight first, I had success as an SDR. I exceeded my quota overall in my time in seat, which was a year and change. I work for a SaaS company that's pretty reputable, not like a humongous logo, but certainly like known by people in the SaaS world. I have been out of the game for almost 5 years. I came into it sort of arrogantly thinking, okay, I have this experience in the industry. I'm clearly just going to like get any interviews for any role I want. And in the time between making the decision to come back in and finding you guys, I found out very rudely and abruptly that I was wrong. I applied to places, I have this resume that has the clear previous SDR experience. I get just a mix of auto rejections, rejections a few days later, or just no reach back of any kind from companies. So I quickly realized that I needed to figure out something different to do. At that point, I was fortunate enough I just started Googling things. Actually, YouTube in this case, I searched tech sales, and you guys, your like new podcast format that you guys started, what I think like a little over a month ago, 2 months ago, something, came across. I watched you guys talking about the industry at large, what's changed like since in the past few years and what's happening in the future. I was like, okay, these guys obviously know something that I need to know. So I basically had a month of falling flat on my face. At that point, found you guys, found the course, and figured out like how to actually get in front of companies that were hiring for these open SDR and BDR roles.
Nice. I love it. And I imagine, I mean, I obviously know that you're the type of guy who does a lot of research. You like to have like a holistic overview, which I 100% respect. Were you looking at any other boot camps as well outside of higher levels? Or like, what was it about higher levels that kind of made you say, like, apart from the podcast, was there anything specifically where you were like, oh, okay, like this makes sense? I imagine you went to the curriculum, that you were doing your due diligence. Like, what kind of checked the boxes for you?
Yeah, great question. So again, I think my arrogance extended to not even looking into other things. So in terms of like these like expensive boot camps that I know that now I'm aware of exist in the marketplace, they weren't even on my radar just because I was just thinking like I got this in the bag. Why would I need any help in the process of simply landing an interview and then doing the interview well? What appealed to me about you guys, and I feel very fortunate, given what I just said, I feel very fortunate that you guys were just happened to be the first thing that like I landed on, period. There was no like trial and error. I just got lucky and found you guys first. Uh, in terms of what I found appealing about you guys, I love a bunch of things. I love that you are actively in the sales world as successful sales reps, helping people that are that are trying to break into the industry. I love that just that direct that you guys have your finger on the pulse of what's happening. When I went to your website after finding that podcast that I mentioned, looking at just the basic breakdown of the video course, seeing how all encompassing it was about resume, about how to get in front, how to basically treat it like a prospect with getting in front of recruiters, and then all the different stages of the interview process, how to think about them on a stage by stage basis. The fact that it was just so extensive. And then the last piece, maybe even the biggest piece for me, was the community aspect that you guys made a clear point of highlighting once I went to the website, seeing that there are these weekly calls and that I had this sense of, okay, I'm going to purchase this course. I just knew it like right away. I'm going to probably get my money's worth out of the video course itself, but the real money maker is going to be that I'm actually going to get in front of Eric, Chris, and all of these people that are in the course, that we're going to be able to like exchange ideas. And that just became like the obvious value to me.
Nice. I love it. Well, we're obviously super grateful that you chose higher levels. And I mean, you know, you are a killer. I love your mentality, the way that you kind of tackled the entire process. I guess after purchasing the course, after going through the content, like what was the most valuable thing to you? So obviously, like you mentioned a little bit about like what you thought it would be. Was there like a specific section, whether that was the video content, the community, anything that like struck out to you and was like, okay, this makes a lot of sense. Now I understand what the market is like today.
There's a couple of things. It's hard for me to nail it down to one. In terms of immediate benefit I got was attending the Q&As that you guys do 2 days a week. So I got lucky enough, actually, I think Chris, who was my first call was with you. First Q&A that I attended was with you and all the other members. I got you to look at my resume like right then and there. And like, I had worked on my resume a bit at that point, but just even having you give me a handful of tips about what to change about it, I was like, yes, I'm finally getting advice from somebody like truly understands the industry, like not just like a generic resume person, or not just like my friends who like are just trying to be a good friend and take a look at my resume. So there was just the obvious value of that. In terms of the course itself, you guys explaining in depth in the course about how to reach out to recruiters, with both the mix of you provide this sort of these two layers, as I understood it, which is like doing outreach, like you're prospecting into hiring management. And then you also explained this additional idea of reaching out for internal referrals. I happen to leverage both. They were just having either one in your toolkit is humongous. Having you guys explain both concepts was just key.
No, it's awesome. And I know obviously you took it, ran with it. You had a couple of great deep stage interviews. You were actually fortunate enough to be in a position where you got an offer that you wanted and turned down a few other final round interviews. Whatever you're comfortable sharing about that process for someone watching this, whether they want training or just are trying to get some tips from this video, maybe share kind of what the interviewing process was like for you and some key takeaways that you learned along the way.
Yeah, so I guess I'll first start preface by saying I try to be super clear, and I would recommend everyone to be super clear what kind of a company you're trying to land at. What are your value? What are the most important things to you? Because we can say that like, oh, every single stat on RepView or whatever are all equally important to me, but at the end of the day, I feel like you should have like your top priorities. So I became crystal clear about that by the time that I was, let's say, a week or two into working with you guys about what I'm looking for. So I determined that the training at the company that I was at, that I could see that, so like one of the categories in RepView is professional development / training, that the training had a great reputation, that I was going to learn all the fundamentals about not just being an SDR, but just about tech sales in general. And then the other big one was that I could see that there were lots of instances of internal promotions from SDR / BDR to account executive. So those were the two things that I was really clear on, checking all of the boards of, you know, like LinkedIn, Glassdoor, Indeed, especially RepView, but a combination of all of those. And sorry, Eric, so just coming back to your question, that was a long
Yeah, yeah. No, that helps a lot. And maybe throughout that process, I know offline, we talked a lot about some of the revelations you had of how things have changed from 18 to 19 to now, 2024. So maybe speaking to, you know, in the interview process itself, is there something that you really felt like you did to set yourself apart or really learned that was different than when you were in the industry about 5 years ago?
You guys definitely taught intentionality in the breakdown of the course. There's all the different stages. You taught from the earlier part, like intentionality about learning about what the company does, making sure you actually have a decent grasp of it to a point where you can articulate it back to them. So I really took all the parts of that course seriously, and it benefits you in every stage. But even right from the jump, I noticed that the recruiters in stage 1 of these interviews just straight up ask you as open as possible, like, so what do we do? What does our company do? They want to understand that you've actually made an effort to learn about them, and this isn't just you like churning through an infinite number of different interview cycles. So that's something that I took seriously, probably more than I did in 2018, 2019. Additionally, really hammering on the different behavioral questions. You guys provided an awesome template for what are some of the questions I was likely to face. So I just ran through the template and made sure, like, you provided like sort of sample answers with all of these most common questions. I went through and just like either slightly modified, like thought your answer was pretty solid, slightly modified it to be my own wording, or just from scratch decided like what answer made sense for me in my situation. And lastly was the questions I asked them. It's hard for me to be in the head of the recruiter, the hiring manager, the manager of the hiring manager, but I got the impression that the questions you ask back to them in those final, let's say 7 to 10 minutes of each round, is as important to them as the questions that they asked you. They really want to see. It's a reflection immediately of how invested are you in this company? How are you thinking about what career as an SDR looks like? So you guys, again, provided an amazing template of potential questions to be asking them. I really internalized what you said and then kind of took it and just ran with it and added additional questions, open-ended questions that I wanted to ask myself. So I guess zooming out, all it came down to was very intentional preparation on a stage-by-stage basis of it, and just really doing my homework.
No, it's awesome. And I love to see the work that you put into it. And yeah, it's you can get lost in the sauce for sure and over preparing, but definitely taking every stage of the interview and every opportunity. I love the word intentionality. I think you said it really well. And just for everyone's reference too, from the time you joined Higher Levels to when you got the job, just what was that rough timeline for you?
Oh, great question. I'm looking at my calendar really quick just because it happened quick. So I got to make sure I get the number accurate. So I joined you guys in early February, and I ended up being late stage with a couple of different companies and receiving my first offer, which happened to me for a company I was really excited about 6 weeks later. So I spent about a month of cleaning up my resume before that in a way I'm proud about, but otherwise just making mistakes about how to get in front of companies. So 2.5 month window total, 1.5 with you guys.
Nice. Yeah, and I remember when you came to that first Q&A, I mean, your resume was already pretty dialed in, so it was just the little things.
You definitely helped me as well, Chris. Let's be clear.
No, but you were awesome, Steve, and I'm super proud of just how you attacked the process and everything else. I think you're very interesting in the sense that you've gone through this process before. I think maybe digging in on that a little bit deeper. I think there's a lot of people that see these old videos of folks breaking in, and there's obviously the tech market was booming a couple of years ago, but I think you have this unique perspective where you broke in a couple of years ago. You did it now. What do you think were the top things that changed? What were your experiences where you're oh, okay, this is nowhere near what it used to be? What I know that we talk a little bit about, obviously getting in front of the hiring managers, all those different things. What was it like back then versus what was it like now?
I wonder to what extent, so you guys talk about how only a tiny fraction of anyone, even in 2024, is doing this sort of outreach to hiring management that is crucial. I question whether a single person was doing it back in 2018, 2019. So people have gotten more intelligent about things. What I would say has changed on the macro level for everyone is there's just less job listings available. I know a company, which is really interesting because I can tell that companies understand that SDR, BDR teams are a crucial part of their success more now than they even did back then. But it's just a tougher market. From what I've heard, buyers have tighter wallets with stuff. So I think companies are being having hiring freeze. There's just less listings available. There's great companies that are putting up listings, but it's not the case where just all these major players all have 5 openings available each on their teams anymore. So the sheer number of people applying to each role, and actually maybe that's the biggest piece. The number of people that are in their shoes like mine that have figured out that tech sales is a great place to be in has skyrocketed since 2018, 2019. The cat is out of the bag. This is a good career path to be in. So not only it's just this lethal combo of less postings, but then even probably the biggest lever is just there's more people out there like me and all these other people that are just realizing this is the industry I want to be in. So there's just more competition.
Yep. No, 100%. I think it's been interesting 18 months for tech, just going from the meteoric rise and having all the open listings and all those different things. So I think that perspective is super valuable. I think, it's easy to look at the videos from a couple of years ago and just expect that oh, you're just going to look at a job listing and you're going to get a job in tech sales and make 300K. I think there's a little bit of a wrong notion there. So we always just like to break that down. But no, Steve, again, you absolutely crushed this. I guess looking back at it, any tips out there for folks who are either considering, going into tech sales for the first time, maybe they were in a similar position as you, like they got out of the game a little bit, want to break back in, or even like folks, considering tech sales ascension, anything you want to leave them with, or any piece of advice that you feel like would help them out?
So what I would say first and foremost for everyone is the thing that I've heard Eric and Chris hammer home extensively. It's not the sexy thing. I would even say it's probably the thing everyone avoids focusing on, which is get your resume super tight. I think regardless of whether you have any experience in SaaS before, whether you even have any experience in sales before, making sure your resume clearly articulates why you would be good, because the impression I get is they want to see potential, not necessarily what you've done, but like just that's relevant to like this very specific role. But like, what is your potential? Articulating it clearly, having quantified numbers is something you guys really hammered home for me. So I would say take your resume super seriously. Have somebody that understands resumes specifically in this industry take a look at it. So that is definitely the biggest piece I would say to start with.
Nice. I love it, man. Well, Steve, again, like huge congrats. You landed at an absolutely incredible company. So I'm super excited for you. I have no doubt you're gonna become a top performer and absolutely blow it out of the water over there. But thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate it. And we're gonna go ahead and drop Steve's LinkedIn down below. So if anybody else has any questions or want to pick his brain, obviously feel free to hit him up if he's not too busy and roll.
No, I'm very open to chatting with anyone who's interested in conversing about anything about this breaking in. So please contact me.
I love it. Well, appreciate the time, Steve, and best of luck at Sprout Social.
Thank you so much.